but thanks for listening. Yeah. Hello, everybody, and welcome to We Say Things. Episode 189, sponsored by Manscaped. Manscaped is here with a deal you can't pass over this Easter season. They've got the tools to give you the beautifully decorated eggs of your dreams. Just because it's Easter doesn't mean it's okay to hide those bad boys behind all that tall grass. So make sure your downstairs lawn is mowed. Get yourself feeling as sweet as candy by going to manscaped.com, getting 20% off and free shipping with the new code We Say Things 20.
The number 20.
The number 20. So the reason that this code has changed is because apparently our code, you know those coupon sites? It ended up on one of those sites. So thanks to whoever spoiled it for everybody. So now we have to add a random 20 at the end of our code. But of course, Manscaped, they're our longest standing sponsor. So we appreciate you guys. If you need some of their products for, the testicular area, as I like to call it, or nose hair trimmer, they have everything now. But be sure to use the new code We Say Things 20. Thank you. And to our beautiful patrons, you take the first half, Cinderin. Thank you.
I do. All right. Thank you to Pepper Balls, T-Coil, Q-Ludes wishes all the Americans a happy tax deadline reminder. # not an ad. Stupid Copilot, new Dota DHL ad should be about them delivering the patch and failing to do so. D2 Bowie, servant of Morgoth. Yatoro does it again, Cinderin. He's been doing it for months now. A year, maybe.
Yeah.
Need more ads for Counter-Strike 2. An ad. Yes. Magdev wants volumetric smokes in Dota 2.
That'd be hype.
My grandma found out what League of Legends is. She's thinking of building a PC. Valve, you need to hurry. Please give marketing. Disco Farm D. Bilingual people have a greater emotional range. Yet Cinderin is the robot Stoogey McStooge face, Dark Sea in the house. The Megapope, what's up with you guys? TI in New Zealand, and Zan Xavier.
Thank you also to Nate Thicko, 01 Hamscroats, Bacon, Shark TM, Freshly Seasoned Goat Balls, Janie, Dop, Nothing to See Here, _man, Guitar Strings, Eva Mort. Ben Broomhead says hi to his friend Emre from Pixel. What an Aftertaste, Anonymous, and Sound Can't Travel Through Space's Vacuum. If it could, the sun would sound as loud as a jet engine from 100 meters, Mr. Niebling. I did know this one. So this is the interesting thing about that. Niebling always starts these conversations. When you watch a movie, Cinderin, and it's about space, and they have sound in space, does it bother you? Because it actually bothers me.
What do you mean they have sound in space?
They're showing stuff exploding in space, and then there's sound, and that's not how that would work. And knowing this fact, it bothers me in trying to enjoy a movie now.
I mean, wouldn't it also kind of be weird from a movie perspective if the scenes where stuff explodes in space are just completely quiet?
Yeah, but
wouldn't that also be weird?
It's accurate. It's like dinosaurs having feathers. They need to have feathers, Cinderin.
Does it also bother you when people use magic in movies because that isn't real?
That's different. Okay.
Why?
If it's like a Star Trek type of thing, then sure. It's supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be accurate. But if it's like a modern day, I don't know. If it's like Interstellar, I'm trying to remember. Shit, the Interstellar is my favorite movie.
Half the movie is just silent.
Like if you've seen the movie Gravity, which I know a lot of people didn't like, they actually instituted the silence quite nicely. And I thought it was extremely well done.
Okay.
But just one of those random things. You know me.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, so first topic of this week is NBA, Cinderin.
Oh, no.
I actually have a lot of news.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Okay, so NBA playoffs are starting soon. Like 3 games away or something like that. It's like a week away, something like that. And it is in the Western Conference, it is so tight. The difference between like the 3rd seed and the 10th seed was like 2 games or like 3 games or something.
Oh, shit.
It's never been this competitive in the history of the NBA, and the West is crazy. We've basically locked ourselves in no matter what now. We're going to be the 4th seed, so we get home court advantage only for the first round, pretty much, unless there's some big upsets. And we'll be playing, we don't know yet, it's either LA Clippers, LA Lakers, Golden State Warriors. So pretty much no matter what, it's going to be a really hard opponent. And it's a weird year because I would genuinely rather play the first 3 seeds than the lower seeds. That's how scary the Western Conference is. Like a lot of these teams that are fully loaded, either they had horrible injuries, so that's why their record's not good. I'm scared of all these teams, and I'm not going to lie. The Suns could literally lose in the first round. I have no idea what's going on. So scary stuff. Second news, which you won't give a shit about, but this is for the NBA nerds out there.
Is this college basketball?
No. It does say CBA, which...
Doesn't... I mean, shouldn't we just move on then? It says CBA.
No. Okay. Actually, the college basketball in the U.S. is the NCAA. That's the main one.
Oh.
I don't remember what CBA... Anyway, CBA in this instance is the collective bargaining agreement. So the way that it works in the NBA is you have like the owners of, all the teams, and then the players have their own union, right? So it's like 2 sides constantly clashing, and there's like constant negotiation, and then usually they sign like a contract that lasts like between 6 to 10 years, however long it is. And if they can't come to an agreement, there have been lockouts in the past where I remember a couple of them, like half the season was canceled, and that's like really bad, right? So a new one has been signed, so we're good for like 6 to 7 years. And I thought there was a couple of things that were interesting to talk about that changed. There's a lot, by the way, a lot. One thing, and this is just a very basic rundown of it, TLDR, makes it way harder for these teams that have infinite money, like the Lakers, like these big market teams, to like they give them less flexibility going forward. That's, again, very summarized version. Also, players can't get awards like MVP, like these big awards that they talk about all year, or they can't like get the all NBA teams, which enhances their salary further because they're considered the best of the best, unless they play 65 games in a year out of the 82 games. Because right now, a lot of teams, a lot of players are like sitting just to rest, just to maintain their health when they should be fucking playing most of the time. So that's really good. And then the big one, which I wanted to ask you about, is very weird. And the reaction from fans, this is something that the commissioner has been trying to push for many years now, and finally he gets it done. There is going to be what's called a play. Wait, what is it called? It's not the play-in. No. The play-in is actually something else. I don't know why I wrote that. The play-in is what's happening in the playoffs. There's going to be a mid-season tournament. The season will halt like 2 months after it starts, and then teams are going to play. Like, I don't know how, they haven't really discussed the specifics. There's going to be like some tournament that is had, or that takes place, and basically the players just get money for it. It has nothing to do with the regular season. There might be some more incentives that, I don't know. I can't remember all the specifics on this one. I should have maybe looked that one up again. But I find it very strange that they stopped the season to have this weird-ass tournament. Some teams will play 83 games in an entire year now. Some teams will play like 80. So now it's not even the same amount of games being played. Not that you know anything about how the NBA works, but it's really weird. Really weird.
So you said you need to play 65 out of 82 games. How many games did you play now in the season?
82.
So how do you add an extra tournament and maintain the same amount of games?
So it takes away from your regular season games.
Okay, so you play less in the season.
Depending on who's in the tournament. Again, I don't, like, a lot of the specifics have not even been...
I don't actually understand how this even works then. I thought there was a set amount of times you had to play other teams in the league.
Yes, there has been, yes.
Yeah, but now with this tournament coming in, there's teams you have to play less times?
Yes, probably. So players are getting paid like $500,000 each or something to play in this tournament.
So let's say you're playing one team once in the league, and then you play them once in the play-in tournament, then you're only playing them one time during the regular league because you also played them in the play-in. Or not play-in, whatever you call it, mid-tournament.
Right,
mid-season thingy.
I don't know how
so that means effectively for the NBA part, you would be playing either at home or away once only, and then you would be playing home or away once only for the mid-season tournament, which just means you would have an inherent disadvantage in one of the two.
And that tournament might be held in neutral locations as well, so you won't even get like all your home court games. Like, again,
I don't understand this.
Nobody does.
I don't get it.
So all the fans are like, what the fuck is this? The main thing that everybody thinks is going on is they're just trying to make as much money as possible, because in theory, you're playing these weird games in weird locations. That's kind of hype for those locations. But nobody really knows how it's going to work. It's extremely weird.
I genuinely don't think it's about making money. I don't think anyone would want to do that with
of course
sports.
Not. And one thing I forgot to put on here.
Another reason we're missing here.
Before we move on, one last thing, Cinder, that I thought you might also find interesting that I forgot to put down. Players are allowed to smoke weed now, which I think is fine.
In general or during the mid-season tournament as they play?
Not during their play. But the big one is they are allowed to invest in basketball teams now, which I don't know what that means exactly, but they're also allowed to deal with gambling sponsors, which that is like, that's a strange one.
What?
So now
they're
the players
allowed to invest in teams.
Yeah, I read that one and I didn't know exactly what it meant. It might mean that you're allowed to have like a minority ownership in a team while you still play. This might be like the LeBron James rule because I know he wants to own a team. I don't know exactly.
But I'm assuming you're only allowed to own part of a team that you are playing for.
That's, again, don't know.
Otherwise, there's like an insane conflict of interest.
Well,
like,
I think the betting thing is an insane conflict of interest as well, potentially, right? That's a scary one.
Yeah, so what did you say they're allowed to do with betting? They're allowed to have sponsorships from betting.
They're allowed... God, I'm going to sound like a fucking moron because I can't remember. All this news has come out like sporadically over the last couple of weeks. I don't remember anymore. Something with gambling, and it's a big deal.
Okay, because in football, it's common to have like a betting sponsor on the jersey, right? Is that the level we're at, or is
no? It's more than that. Like individual players can work with betting sponsors, which
I see
is weird, very weird.
I guess that means that not only are they allowed to have them on their jerseys, but they're also allowed to make endorsements and appear as the face of a campaign or something while playing for a team. I guess that's the difference.
When I hear the details, I'll let you know. Okay. The NBA segment has gone on quite a while, so we will put that to bed. But thank you for listening to
this is one of the most interesting NBA segments of all time because it's less about the basketball.
Yeah, you like gambling, I see. Yeah. All right,
Let's talk more gamba.
The DPC has ended, Sundarin, and I figured we go over each region, and I actually saved these brackets ahead of time, so I won't be freezing your face anymore.
Okay.
So let's start with Western Europe, what did you cover again? I watched 0 of your casts, by the way.
Thank you.
Couldn't bear it.
Nice of you.
Couldn't bear being without you.
I covered Western Europe, China, and NA.
Okay, so let's start with Western Europe. So Nigma and Monaspa are out. That was through a tiebreaker with Entity. So Entity stays in. Ooredoo just barely loses out.
They were so
close to getting top 4 to go to the major, but instead
TA2000.
They will continue on in the Division 1 though. And then Team Liquid, Tundra, Gaben, and OG take the top 4 and will go to the major. Your thoughts?
OG going to the major with a score of 6-8 in games. What a fucking competitive region.
Yeah.
It's insane. They get 4th place with 3 and 4. And the way OG did it was really impressive because they had a terrible start. They were 1 and 4, and then they won out. And that might not sound like a lot because it's like, oh, well, they end 3 and 4. But they had to win that, and then they also had to win a tie. And that tie was against a really strong opponent in Ooredoo Thunders. So, yeah. Obviously happy for OG. A bit gutted for Ooredoo primarily because of TA2000. I really like the guy. I played with him for a bit. I feel like this guy has so much promise, but I think it took him some time primarily to get better at English because he wants to play for a Western team. And it seemed like he was getting his big break with his team. And I mean, it's still a really good result, right? They came from Div 2, and they almost made the major in their first season of Div 1, which almost no teams managed to accomplish. Most teams coming up from Div 2 just get relegated again, right? So, good stuff. Can't say I'm too surprised about the top 3, right? Liquid, Tundra, and Gaben. Everybody expected these 3 teams to be in some capacity in the top 4. And just another not great showing for Nigma. They're going to go back now to Div 2, where depending on how Div 2 goes now, Div 2 could literally have Nigma and Secret in Season 3, unless Secret managed to bounce back.
Well, you don't think Secret's going to get Div 1?
I mean, I think they should, but I'm saying it's not a given, right? So, Div 2 is getting more and more competitive.
Div 2 is probably better than Div 1 NA. Well, maybe not.
It is.
It's close, though. It's close.
It is. It's better.
It's actually
quality
just
on
better.
average is better.
Well, on average, but I think if you take, like, obviously the top teams are going to be better in NA.
Yeah, the top 2 teams of NA are going to be on better than all, if maybe not all, but definitely I think it's fair to say all. I don't know. Secret are a wild card, right? If they're really good, they would be better than TSM, for example. But I would say Shopify Rebellion and TSM should be better than all of EU Div 2. But aside from that,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So just to give you guys an idea, Div 2 EU has Ivy, Into the Breach. They were in Div 1 last season. Secret were in Div 1 last season. Ancient Tribe. Old G, which has Seb, Topson, Resolution, Kitrek, and No One. PugChamp, which has a lot of the really strong Eastern European players. D2 Hustlers, which is an international mix. And Alliance. That's Div 2.
Yeah.
And 2 teams from there get promoted. So it's not given at all that any specific team makes it up, to be honest.
Div 2 is going to be pretty crazy.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to... Okay, I got rid of that screen by accident. We'll be moving on to Eastern Europe.
Yep.
Where the bottom 2, so going down to Div 2 are Na'Vi and Darkside, and then the teams that stay in Div 1, Virtus Pro, One Move, and Hydra, and the 3 teams that are going to the Major, Hellraisers, who were undefeated in terms of the series, Team Spirit, who only lost 1 series, and then BetBoom, who went 5-2.
Yeah, and among the top 3, they just only lost to each other. So BetBoom lost to Spirit and Hellraisers, and Spirit lost to Hellraisers. So a very clear tiering here among the top 3. Gonna be exciting to watch Hellraisers at the Major. They've been improving a lot, right? Like we cast them... we cast their most recent improvement when they were looking really rough and then started getting some momentum. And now, after bringing in Ramses, this seems to be a really strong team. So I'm curious to see how well they do in Berlin. Yeah, strong team for sure. It's Eastern Europe might have a little bit more to bring to the table this time around. It's generally Spirit that carries the torch. Like BetBoom didn't look too hot last time, but any of these 3 teams can take a series off of everyone in the world, in my opinion. So should be exciting. Yeah, that's pretty much Eastern Europe.
All right, then moving on to China. The bottom 2 out into Div 2 now. Vici and Outsiders from China.
Yeah, Outsiders from China went 0-14 and were insanely outmatched. Yeah. And the story behind this team
is a sub team, right?
So they got 3rd in Div 2. Which means they weren't promoted to Div 1, but then because of the ban wave among Chinese pro players, they actually got the slot. But the slot was taken by 5 different players than the ones that got 3rd in Div 2. So this was a totally different team, and it was not a Div 1 team.
Yeah.
So, like, just flat out, they got crushed every game. I think their longest game was less than half an hour.
The 2 teams that stay are Aster Aries and YBB Gaming. And then the 4 teams that will go to the Major, Team Aster went 4-3, IG also 4-3, PSG LGD 6-1, and Extreme Gaming 6-1. So some competition for sure towards I guess the top 6 really.
I mean,
any big surprises here?
Yeah, I'm surprised Extreme won the whole thing. I thought it was going to be LGD or Aster, especially when you saw how it was going in the first few weeks, or I say few weeks, the first few series. But Extreme really managed to figure things out and won some big series. And on top of that, other teams lost some series that helped them out, right? PSG LGD lost to IG toward the end of the season, which is why they didn't go 7-0. And then they got the tiebreaker that Extreme won. So yeah, IG really unlocked themselves after a rough start. They just started winning a lot. And Aster started 4-0 and then lost 6 games in a row. I think, or one of the series was 2-1, I think. But anyway, yeah, they. I'm very hopeful for. I mean, I feel like I say this every time. I'm hopeful for China this Major. It's been a while since they've had good results.
Yeah, what do you mean? It feels like you literally say this every time. Actually, is the thing.
But I guess I'm running high on copium for this region at international competitions until they do well.
Yeah.
But
true.
let's see.
Okay, SCA, bottom 2 into Div 2 now. Geek Slate and Polaris, the 3 teams that stay where they are. Army Geniuses, Blacklist International, and Bleed Esports. And the top 3 going to the major. Team SMG went 5-2, Execration 5-2, and then Talon undefeated, 7-0. Although they did split, or they did have games taken off of 3 of their series. Any big surprises here? I mean, we talked about Blacklist already a few weeks ago, how this was kind of like one of those wild card teams with very recognizable names, but they just, I mean, they stay Div 1. Maybe they just need a little bit more time, but I was expecting them to make a run for the top 3 at some point.
Same. Yeah, what's the biggest surprise? I think halfway through the tournament, it really looked like Army Geniuses was going to take top 3. But Execration went on a heater and Army Geniuses lost a couple, and then all of a sudden that was enough for them to sneak in there. I guess based on how previous seasons have gone, surprising to see SMG in the top 3. They've generally been like middle to bottom of the middle of the pack. They haven't been knocked down, but they've like barely stayed alive in Div 1. But this will be, I guess for most people, the most recognizable player here is Mid 1. It's been quite a long time since Mid 1's played a big event, so see if he still got it. And Afu, of course, has some very memorable moments. And then you've got Moon on mid and Paulus on 5. And the carry CDR, I think this will be his first big international tournament, if I'm not mistaken. Pretty sure. Anyway, yeah. I don't know. The biggest surprise here is probably SMG overall, because Execration did make the last major as well. So them going back is not too surprising. But they didn't have the best showing there, so hopefully this time around they can do better. But Talon, definitely the team to watch from this region. Also the team that got easily the best results at the last tournament. So see if they can get further this time.
And on to our favorite, NA.
Yep.
Bottom 2 that basically lost in tiebreakers. Actually, no, that wasn't the tiebreaker. The tiebreaker was for the middle of the pack, I guess.
Yeah, those tiebreaker for 4th.
Wild card went 0-7. I want to talk about that in a minute. 5 at 4 staff also got bottom 2, so they're down to Div 2. Team Dog Champ, Bait, Felt, and Nouns, middle of the pack. And then, of course, TSM, Shopify are the 2 going to the major.
And everybody was shocked.
Yeah, everybody was shocked. I mean, the only thing that's shocking to me is wild card. And, of course, this lineup has changed like drastically. But Yawar, Lil Nick, MSS, Sammy Boy, and Alone. They will 0-7. That is insane to me. I don't even know how that's possible. That is such a good lineup.
They just did not look good. That's it. Like, if you watch their games, it's uninspired. It's not coordinated. It's all over the place. They just didn't click for whatever reason. I'm not going to like speculate what the reason is, but what they showed in the games was just poor for how good their players are. So that sucks, obviously. Dropping down in NA also means that next season they would have to play Div 2, so their only path to TI would be through... Wait, is TI even possible now? With the new format? I don't actually know if they can even make TI from dropping down here. I guess they still can. I think they still can. But yeah,
they can get to the 3rd major, right? They can still do that.
No? Because for the 3rd major, they're playing Div 2. Right? So they can't make Major 3 either.
That's true.
But anyway, yeah, Nouns were off to a really good start this time around, and I was more optimistic about them because I liked what I saw in their drafting. My biggest problem with this team has been inconsistency in strategy. And just as things were looking hot, then when they went up against TSM, in my opinion, they had their worst draft in Game 1 of the tournament. And they just... Yeah, then they ended up losing that series. I think Game 2 was really close, if I remember correctly. Or at least decently close. But
yeah, TSM,
in the end,
TSM
2-0 them.
They only lost 2 games the entire time, and one was to Wildcard, and one was to Shopify, and that's it.
And the one to Wildcard was hilarious. Yeah, and then Shopify rolled over Nouns, 2 30-minute games. And then after that, Nouns lost to Felt, which I'm not going to put too much stock into because that series had no implications for Nouns. They were 3rd no matter what happened there. So they were just locked in place, effectively. Yeah, so once again, NA produced the same 2 teams for the major. Like I said, I was hopeful for Nouns, but this also wasn't the time. we'll see if they make it for the third, if they're going to make any changes or whatnot. Because I mean, at some point for these players, like it's obviously nice to stay in Div 1 and
I can hear your mouse actually.
Keep being there. You can hear my mouse.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Somebody always complains about Cinderin and his stupid mouse.
It's nice to stay in Div 1 for them, obviously, but you know they would like to go to the major at some point, and they've just been on the cusp for so long. And the question is, how long do you want to stay this team, right?
Yeah.
Like being on the cusp all the time isn't really that rewarding.
I can hear it again.
Yeah, that's because I'm clicking. That's because I'm clicking it to look at this.
All right. Do you have a nervous tick? Is that what it is? You just need to play with something. You need like a widget spinner, whatever those are called.
I don't have a nervous tick, but I just fidget.
Yeah, a fidget spinner. Did I say widget? Fidget spinner. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, on to South America, the last region.
But I do need to use my mouse when I'm clicking things. I can't do that without using it.
Why can't you use your mind? You're a computer after all. Connect to ChatGPT.
Switch tab.
So for South America, the team. So there was a tiebreaker between 5th and 7th place. So the teams that are now out are Kali, I don't know how to say that name, and Keyed Stars. The teams that stay are Thunder Awaken, Infinity, Infamous R, Alliance Latam. And then the two teams will go to the major. Big surprise. EG goes 6-1, Beast Coast 7-0, which I want to say is the exact same record as last time.
I think so.
Like I think EG lost the game to Beast Coast, just like last time, right?
Yep. Yeah. And Thunder Awaken lost to EG and Beast Coast. So this is basically the exact same situation as Eastern Europe, right? Where the top 3 are just tiered and everyone else is just worse. So, yep. This is, I mean, it's going to be a big story for me when another team goes to the major from SA. It just seems like it's just not happening, you know? Yeah. It's kind of like NA. There's just 2 teams that are just better than the rest every time.
Yep, it happens.
But maybe they will catch up. I mean, it just takes one series where it goes wrong, right? It just takes one time that Thunder beats EG or Beast Coast this time around, for example. Then that would have been enough to at least ensure a tiebreaker. But yeah, this is a bit of a level of... There's a bit of a gap there, so to speak.
True. Oh, God.
And EG and Beast Coast, the good thing for this region about these teams going is that they are actually pretty good in international competitions, which in the past, SA has been very poor on the big stage, but for the last year or two, these two teams have, or rather these combinations of players have been able to get pretty good results. They can definitely make a running for even top 3 at the big tournaments. So we'll see them in Berlin. And that's it. That's the DPC.
That's it. So next thing we can briefly discuss
is... If 2 starts tomorrow, by the way.
Okay. Next thing we can briefly discuss is the Dreamleague. What season is this? Season 19. And I'm going to put the graphic on the screen for the teams that we will be seeing at this tournament. We will be doing remote casting. I think that was announced today, finally.
Mm-hmm.
So of these teams, who do you think has the best chance? We got Gaming Gladiators, Tundra, Liquid, Entity, OG, Shopify, Nouns, TSM, Talon, Execration, EG, Beast Coast, Team Spirit, Hellraisers, Team Aster, and PSG LGD.
Oof. Do you want to do a top 3? How about that?
Okay.
All right, top 3 in no particular order. Okay. I'll write this down. We always do our predictions, don't we?
And we never even remember to go look at what we predicted. But we do make the predictions.
We did do that with the Oscars.
The Oscars are very important.
We did it with Peru as well, to be fair.
Okay.
We did remember.
All right.
All right, so I'm going to say Liquid gets top 3. Do I dare? Do I dare pick a Chinese team?
Do it. It's tradition.
I feel like if I don't do it this one time, they're going to do it, you know?
If that's what you want for China to do well, then don't pick them.
Yeah. I have so much power.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to say Gaming Gladiators as well.
Okay.
I think they look good in Div 1 once again. And my third team is... Fuck it, it's LGD. Okay, let's do it.
All right, so... I'm going to go with, Liquid, Gaben, and Shopify.
Shopify is yours. All right.
Yeah, of course.
That's your guilty pleasure.
You know me. I mean, they'll get it together at some point, you know?
So is it Liquid, Shopify, and Gaben, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm looking at these other teams and I don't know. I mean, sure, like any of these teams could like have a good run, like momentum based, but like, based on the results, I just don't see, like, I don't see TSM being able to beat Shopify. Like, that's not gonna
why
happen
this is
again.
going to be Shopify's tournament?
Why?
Crit now knows how Blink Dagger works.
You want to talk about that briefly?
To me, that was genuinely unbelievable.
All right, why don't you?
I could not believe it. All right. So there was a clip on Reddit recently from Crit's stream, and he's using Blink Dagger, and he's like, I swear I clicked it further than I didn't blink as far as I clicked with it. It's like, why not? And then he tried again. Yeah, look, guys, I'm not blinking far enough. What the hell's going on? He didn't know about the blink buffer range.
Right.
This guy has played Blink Heroes on position 4 for years as one of the best in the world and did not know this mechanic. I could not believe it. I was like, is he trolling? You know, are you serious? Is he just farming impressions on his stream? But supposedly it was true from what I've heard. Like, he just didn't know. Imagine him now, man. Now he knows how his dagger works on his Tiny and Shaker.
So that one,
500 times.
That one is obviously quite egregious, especially since it's 2023 now. But I'm going to defend Crit and say this. Obviously, like, doesn't take away from his skill at all. We all know he's one of the best players of all time. But
yeah,
like when I owned a team, this is when. So you know how there's people on Reddit and on Twitch chat and all that shit that defend pro players to the death, where if casters criticize them, just as an example, they're like, well, they obviously intended to do that, but like to a fault, they defend the pro players, right? And I wouldn't say I was like that necessarily, but I kept that in the back of my mind until I owned a team and I realized that pro players, they're really mechanically god tier. Like they're absolute gods, but there's actually a lot of mechanics they don't get, or they never grew up with the same, like, you know, gaming lifestyle that I did, or whatever. You know, everybody grows up in different environments. There's a lot of little things that they don't know. Like I would just randomly mention something and they would have no idea that existed in Dota. That happened literally weekly. Like it's not like it was an isolated incident. And then the big story was like the Weehaw one that we've talked about in the past at TI, where one of our coaches showed him how to aggro mid in the middle of the tournament at TI 6. And once that happened, he started owning every lane because he was getting dominated in every lane before that. And that's literally the biggest reason why we got second place at that TI.
So fucking
there's big things and small things. Like there's so many mechanics in Dota, it's literally impossible. So that's why I don't personally get, I mean, obviously I have no shame anymore, but when we make a mistake about something that we don't know, or something that used to be the case back in the day, it is literally impossible to remember everything at this stage. There are so many mechanics that have very special, like a lot of things are not only are they not set in stone, but they don't have the same interactions with other things in the game because it's seemingly random at times. And things change so much over the course of what we've been playing, 15 plus years or whatever, that obviously mistakes are going to be made, and pro players do this shit all the time as well. So I'm sure there's plenty of other pro players that, I'm not saying they didn't know that one, because that one obviously a lot of people know, but it just goes to show that pro players don't know every mechanic for sure.
I think the reason that the Blink one is so egregious is that it's very famous because of how stupid it is, right? It's just this one, you'd think everybody at a pro level has heard about it because it's such a weird leftover from Warcraft 3. And I personally think it should be removed. Like, I don't understand why this is in the game anymore. It's just like there's no point, right? It's just added difficulty for no reason.
What distance would you choose?
You should just have its max distance then.
The max distance.
Yeah, why should it be on the player? Like, I get it. It adds an element of skill.
No, it's an artificial ceiling. That's what it is.
Exactly. It's just such a weird thing to be skillful about in this game that has a million other things that you could be skillful about.
Yeah.
Like, I think other mechanics like creep aggro, for example, that you mentioned, falls in a different category because that's not about perfectly gauging on your screen whatever 1200, 1250 range or whatever it is, but it's about, you know, playing. Yeah, it's different. I think you know what I mean about it. But Yeah, the fact that he didn't know this was kind of mind-boggling to me.
I mean, that whole
there was
argument
other
you
things
just
if he
made.
didn't know that, I would be like,
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, that argument you're making about like the artificial ceiling and why that's needed. Like, I feel that way. I mean, it's not in the same extreme as the blink, but I feel the same way about mana bars because you can make the same. Like, let's say mana bars existed where you could see the bar, but it doesn't show the numbers. You don't know exactly how much. You know a percentage of what they have, but you don't know how much they actually have, and you still have to click them to see how much mana they have. Like for like anti-mage type whatever. So I think that's an unnecessary convolution of the game.
Don't think that needs to be the way it is. That's also fine.
But that's the thing. Change. Like there's so many things in the game that don't need to be that way that are Blink Dagger. It's something that I hadn't really thought about for a while. I would not be surprised if in the next year that gets changed because of this incident.
Oh, I could absolutely
like
see
it could just be one of those things that's like this legacy thing that they just kept in the game. Like, maybe we should get
Nobody
rid of that.
complained about it. Nobody, whatever.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, Crit isn't complaining either. But yeah, it was funny to see. It's really fascinating when you think about it that you have a game with so much depth and players that are so insanely good, and then there are a lot of. I would go out on a limb here and say there's a lot of 4K MMR players out there that know more about the game than the pros. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true.
Like, that just know more mechanics, know more things by heart, like mana costs, cast ranges, animations, all this stuff. But Dota is a game of feel. That's what's so beautiful about it, is that the way you get good at this game is through tons and tons and tons of experience, just hands-on experience and trying different stuff and whatever. But you can ask tons of pros about like specific questions where you're like, everybody knows the cooldown of this spell and they probably don't know,
Yeah.
Like they can just feel it in the game. They're like, it's about ready now.
Yeah. No, that's definitely
funny.
True. Now, one person that doesn't play on feel is AUI. He is a fucking nerd. And he will remember the numbers of every single detail of the game.
He'll probably remember which patch the blink got changed to get this shit.
Yeah. Wait, did it not always used to be that way?
It might always have been this way, at least in Dota 2. But it might have been changed at some point. I mean, blink has been patched in Dota 2. It hasn't been the same the whole time. It has price
mana
changes,
cost,
cooldown, mana cost, stuff like this. There's been different
I
things.
still think to this day the biggest change that Dota ever made to like an item, like changing the complexion of the game, is the no mana cost blink dagger. That is by far the biggest change. And originally it was put in where you could blink after getting hit too, though. So that was really broken. Then they got rid of that part, and now it's like the coolest item in the game for sure. That's one of the best changes ever made, easily.
One of the most celebrated patches in Dota 1 was 648B, I think. That was the one where Virtus Pro with Vigos was one of the godly teams of Europe. It was them and MYM. And the meta there was to play Silencer and Blink heroes with stun. So it was like Sand King, Sven, Wraith King at the time, Skeleton King, I guess, was played. Because you could just blink after taking damage. These blink stunners were blinking in and out. And one of the counters was Silencer, because then you couldn't cast your stuns. Warlock was played as well.
But that 75 mana cost, I believe that's what it was, felt so bad. So bad. And when that was taken off, man, what a change. Okay, anyway. All right, last topic of Dota specifically, and this is something you're more familiar than me because apparently I've just been off of Reddit. I'll let you take it, Cinderin.
Yeah, so this is a really big story that came out in the last 24 hours. I'm going to try to paraphrase it. I'm not going to go into all the details because there's a lot going on and it's still unconfirmed, a lot of it. But basically, if you go on Reddit right now, it's all over the front page. It's about organized match fixing and, organized match fixing predominantly in Eastern Europe, with like to the level of somebody who is called Anton, organizing, convincing players to do this or that in return for money, right? And just betting on matches, even organizing their own league so that they could just in-house set up everything. Now, this isn't fully confirmed, but the way this has been... So first of all, the guy who made the video is Morph Designer, who is one of the most well-regarded content creators in Eastern Europe. He's always been making really good content, and he's been spending a lot of time and energy on this. He's had someone investigated for him, supposedly. So they've worked together on trying to uncover this scandal, basically. And some of the evidence in here is pretty damning. Like, some of it is more or less, I would say it's unconfirmed, but some of it is so close to confirmable that I would just say that is true. And then there's some of the things that are maybe less
concrete.
Nah, I don't know if that's the right word, but like not fully certain, like where the evidence isn't as overwhelming, but where it's speculation more so, but speculation that could very well be true. Let's put it that way. But yeah, there's a shitload of stuff. If you're interested in it, I recommend you just go and watch and read it yourself. There's a video on Reddit right now. It translates to effectively the King of 322. I don't know if you want to put a link in the description of the video. We can do that. I'll send you the link for people that want to watch this. And my take on this in general is obviously, I mean, shit like this makes me worried for the future of the game. I'll just be completely honest about it, because it's not that we weren't worried that something like this was happening, right? I mean, it's basically confirmed at this point that something like this was happening in China, but
yeah,
because a lot of the teams got banned for match fixing or cheating and whatnot. But this problem might go a lot deeper than you might think on a surface level, and it draws into question the integrity of a lot of shit, like Div 2, Eastern Europe, even some Div 1 players or teams could be involved in this, or at least tangentially related to it. It's just really fucking shit. Like, there isn't really much else to say about it. Match fixing and all this it's one thing that it's happening, but the other thing is, what do you do about it as Valve, right? Because in the end, yeah, you can ban players, which is what has happened in the past. Seemingly, a lot of bans that have come out hasn't stopped the problem. So what's your next step? Like, is this just going to keep happening? Is there some way of, getting to the root of the whole problem? And, this is criminal stuff, right? Like, this gives jail time if you, supposedly, right? I would hope so. For the people organizing and running this whole shit. And it's just really bad if the Dota pro scene is step by step devolving into match fixing, because, like, it's no secret, and it's obvious to anybody that watches, that a lot of the money that is flowing around now in broadcasting as well, right? A lot of the big sponsorships for tournaments are from betting sites that are looking to get more people to bet on their games, which is, you can have whatever take you want about betting, good or bad. Like, I think I've talked about this in the podcast before, I don't inherently have a problem with betting as long as it's regulated and run properly. But obviously, it becomes trickier and trickier when the teams and the players and some sort of organization behind that might not be even related with the betting site are abusing the system and gaming it to their advantage, which just, at that point, inherently makes the betting a lot more gray area than it already is. But the fact of the matter is, the Dota 2 pro scene depends on it. We can't just cut out all betting sponsors and all of this from the scene, because unfortunately, there isn't enough non-endemic sponsorships. There's even less endemic sponsorships than there used to be. So to give you an example, Monster only sponsors Liquid now. They were sponsoring like 10 orgs. They only sponsor Liquid. Intel is withdrawing from all esports, I think. So is Nvidia. Like, these massive sponsorships that we used to have that were promoting their stuff and making our scene function are pulling out. So, there's less and less places to get funding for your tournaments, for your teams, and all this stuff. And it means that we're more dependent on betting sponsorships than ever. So that's one thing, which I would say is obviously not ideal, but it just gets so much worse with stuff like this, right? Because we're dependent on them, and then they also do this. It's worrisome. It's a really vicious spiral, I think.
So I think,
and I hope these videos help. I really do. I hope this becomes a positive thing that he released this. But
I didn't know anything about this beforehand. But we did talk about how China, there's been rumors for many years that this is basically what's happening there. So to hear that that's happening also in Eastern Europe, not great. I think one thing from Valve's perspective, what they do is a strong-armed approach. Is that even the right way to say it? You basically are banning people for life. It's killing careers, right? But if your career is not giving you enough, like maybe that's worth the risk for these players, right? Like I'm not going to go into like the reasons that they would do it, like outside of like being influenced by other parties or whatever. I'm just looking at from a very basic standpoint. I'm not making enough money to play anyway, so it's either this or I do a different job. So I might as well do this until I get caught and then I'm banned, whatever. It's not that big of a loss. So from that standpoint, what else can Valve do that would dissuade this behavior, right? Obviously, there's the idea of spending more money to put into the scene, which that I'm sure would help to some degree, but there's got to be something in addition to that that would dissuade this kind of behavior.
So from my perspective, at least certain stories that we've heard in the past about players match fixing, right? It has been something even down to I needed to pay my bills and I wasn't getting the necessary results in Dota. And then people can just say get good as much as they want. But the fact of the matter is in Dota, it's the top 1% that makes top 70% of the money. So the game is inherently designed, or the pro scene is inherently designed in such a way that the vast majority of the money goes in TI. And out of that, 50% is top 3. More, 60% is top 3. Maybe even more than that. Maybe 70% of top 3, I think.
Isn't
actually.
it like 40% is just for number one?
So like
or something
44%
like that?
number 1. And then it's like, yeah, it's like 75% actually, I think. Goes to the top 3, right? So think about that for a second. You have an entire competitive year. There's one tournament at the end of the year that is like 80% of the prize pool. And of that 80%, 75% of that 80% goes to top 3. Like, to me, is like, I've talked this to fucking death at this point in the podcast, right? But I'll still fight for it because I feel like this is one of the biggest things that Valve has a lot of control over and would make a really big difference for the health of the scene. And also, I hope, would help with this problem because at the end of the day, if you look at Dota, it's almost like a lottery ticket, right? Because you can be as skilled as you want. It's a 5-person game. There's crunch time. You need to play your best when it matters the most. And then you need to get to TI, step number 1. Then at TI, you need to get a high placement as well. If you're playing from, let's say, a Western European country with pretty high expenses, and you qualify for TI and get last, it doesn't even pay your year. You're in the top 16, top 18 teams in the world in an exceptionally competitive field. But with sponsors pulling out, with all of this stuff, orgs are not putting as much money into player salaries, into activation, all this stuff as they were in the past, because it's like these two things are symbiotic, right? Like the way teams invest or the way orgs invest into the game depends on the exposure and what they get in return with how tournaments are structured, with how prize pool is structured. And if you're an org, let's say you're an org and you're like, we have a budget, we want to get into a new game, and our budget for this new game this year is $1 million. Who's going to pick Dota?
That's a really good point.
You're getting a return on investment if your team does well at TI, and in basically every other situation, you lose. Otherwise, you could get into Counter-Strike. You could get in Call of Duty. You could get into whatever, right? Where there's more regular return on investment, essentially, right?
So that is the best argument you've ever made for this type of
it's really
prize pool
problematic,
distribution.
right? Because if you think about it, then what ends up happening is, so players, because of the structure that there is, the players are, as you pointed out, maybe more likely to get dragged into something like this because they see the writing on the wall. It's like, well, if I don't make TI, or if, they're spending this much time, they have to pay their bills. Like, I mean, I'm never going to say that I support them, right? Of course I don't. I don't want anyone to match fix, but you can easily see that the temptation becomes more and more overwhelming when you add up all the factors. And you could definitely combat some of the factors by restructuring the fiscal year for the game. If the entire year was flatter and TI was still the biggest tournament, then you have way more quote unquote chances at the lottery, right? Because there's, instead of one tournament that's 80% of the prize pool, what if TI was 35 or 40, which is still massively the biggest tournament? But then throughout the year, you're going to maybe qualify to some stuff, maybe get a third place here or there. You're going to get into a division. You're going to get into a tournament, like whatever it is, where you make especially if you're from Eastern Europe, you don't even need that good placements because the cost of living is way lower, right?
It's basically a trickle down effect. And
yes.
I mean, you basically summed it up, but I want to just hammer it in because that is the best point I've ever heard. Been talking about this for how many years now? And I don't know if you brought up that exact scenario of what the trickle down effect would be, but it's actually perfect because the orgs and the sponsors will become more involved if teams don't rely on one tournament.
Yes.
And then from that, players will get more money. All of that comes down to a redistribution of the money to start with.
Yep.
And so I will say this, though. I don't think that fixes everything with match fixing. I think that does certainly help, and it makes the scene healthier. There's no question in my mind that that's the case. But on top of all that, I wonder what Valve can even do from a legal standpoint, like to go after people that do this, because it's in different countries. I'm sure on some level they just don't. I don't say that they don't give a shit, but it's a lot of hassle. So I can't even blame them for not wanting to do that. But that might be necessary to find like some third party that will help facilitate that to some degree. Because I think that's the third step, is getting legal and like fucking some people up basically financially to dissuade this even more. Because ending their career apparently isn't enough, which is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is, let's say you're banned from Valve events, right? There's still other tournaments running, and these players, that even means that the true, like the quote unquote ultimate punishment that we had in the past isn't actually killing these players' careers entirely, because if they can still play in other tournaments and match fix in those, then they can make a living off it, right?
Well, what
then
tournaments?
It's not just your.
It's like these. It's not like the ESL stuff.
No,
because they wouldn't accept them. I don't think.
So,
just like the Bet Boom tournaments and that shit.
Yeah, I'm not going to highlight any specific tournament without knowing for a fact that it happened, right? But in the video from Morph, he is talking about a tournament called the Neon Esports League, I think it was called, and that he is uncovering has been run and organized in part by people running organized match fixing, and they have had teams in this tournament that are just, a part of this whole, machine, basically, which is, I don't need to say anything, right, about that, what that is. But yeah, I definitely don't interpret this as everything is Valve's fault, because I'm with you. I feel like there's certain things they can do and there's certain things they just can't do, and it just sucks. And I think they really want to help with the integrity of the game. But again, from my perspective, if they really do, then that is my best suggestion: is change the year. I think that is where Valve can do the absolute most with the absolute smallest amount of effort, is to move the money around.
But they don't get big numbers at TI. That's the loss, right?
About the whole legal shit and everything, I know nothing about what they can do, how it would concretely work, how they would even start. So I'm not gonna come with a take on that, because I genuinely don't know what they should do there. But I do know that we don't even need a small TI, right? So obviously TI 10 was like 40 million in prize pool, and the last one was about 25. If you took let's just operate under the assumption that TI doesn't get bigger again. Let's just say it's 25, and you took 10 million out of that, or 15, TI would still easily be the biggest tournament. And now all this other money being spread throughout the year makes Division 1 suddenly a livable wage in the US, in Western Europe. It makes...
but you don't make headlines anymore. That's the problem.
The majors are worth $2 million instead of $500K. So if you're one of these players that finally gets to a major, you can start playing the bottom 8 teams. Like, you're not paying bottom 8 at the majors even, because the majors are worth $500,000, and you want the top placements to be meaningful. And within the scope of only having $500,000 for the major, I kind of get the reasoning that they don't pay bottom 8. It's, from my perspective, it just sucks, right? Like, if the major had 3 times, 4 times, 5 times the prize pool, you would definitely be paying downwards, because then you could still have big top placements that truly, matter to the ones that have a great run without completely sacrificing the bottom. And it's kind of a leftover from TI, right? The first couple of TIs had no prize money for bottom 8, which, looking back now, for me is also kind of ridiculous. But the early TIs also didn't have as much of a prize.
Kind of like the
right?
Blink Dagger range. Legacy.
Legacy, indeed. Yeah.
So yeah,
I don't know. I really hope that this will change.
I hope. I mean, we're beating a dead horse at this point, but I think that was the best job you've done explaining it, even though, I mean, it took you enough times, 100 times talking about it. Fine.
I've gone through a lot of reiterations. It has to get better at some point.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's do one more topic before we bid everybody adieu. Ability Arena.
Ooh.
We've come out with our biggest update ever, Cinderin. We had our tournament today. Sing Sing won. Congratulations, Sing Sing. He beat Monkeys Forever in a tiebreaker that we made up at the last second to make sure that Monkeys didn't win again.
What was the tiebreaker?
Just whoever had the highest placement in the final game. The final game actually ended with Sing Sing beating Purge, and Purge had to leave halfway through the game and still got second place. So we were watching Sing Sing beat an AFK player for the last 10 minutes of the game.
I'm sure Monkeys loved that tiebreaker rule.
He was very happy about that.
I love that we go from competitive integrity straight over to this.
It's fine. It's fine. No big deal. All right. So the update is enormous. I'm going to actually share my screen here. There we go. So it is only season 5.5, but it's, like I said, it's the biggest update we've ever come out. It's called the Pantheon update. So we've introduced items in a way. So I'm going to explain exactly how it works. And actually, Jenkins did a better job of explaining it to me. Or explaining it today. So essentially, think of Gabe Newell himself is in the middle of the map. And every 8 rounds, he calls forth a champion. Well, maybe I shouldn't use that word. Calls forth a hero from each player. Okay, so each player chooses one hero to be a part of this Pantheon trial in the middle of the map.
Okay.
And they spawn in order of HP, current HP. So the first person in the lobby, whoever's winning, will spawn first. Whoever's last will spawn last, and they spawn in a circle. Okay? And they start just free-for-alling, just beat the shit out of each other. And then based on who wins and the order of that, you pick items for your heroes.
Okay.
And there are different effects that occur with each trial. And at the beginning of the game, if you look at the top bar, it'll actually show you icons that explain what those trials are going to be, which I can go over briefly. So this is just a screenshot of what the Pantheon, like you're picking your hero to go to the trial. And then once you're done, I guess I can zoom in a bit here. You have an item pool, and each person's selecting one, so you just choose them in order. So you're just watching what people pick. So obviously, if you're the first place guy and you get last, or you die first, then you're getting the last pick essentially of the items.
Right.
And since there's 3 trials in the game, the items get progressively better. So they go from like B tier to A tier to S tier. And this is what the item UI looks like now. So you have a little bench for the item that you can drag onto. It's kind of like Underlords, drag it onto the hero icon itself. So the way that we've kind of separated the trials, there are 4 types of trials, and within them there's a bunch of different effects. Okay, try not to make this too complicated. There's 3 tank trials. So if you see like a strength icon, it means it's probably a good idea to put a tanky guy in there, because the negative effects will be minus 50% spell damage and minus 50% attack damage for all the 3 tank trials. And within the tank trials, there's either the fire element, earth, or nature, which will, like fire, as an example, will just deal magic damage per second to everybody. So you want a tanky guy. Earth trial will, based on how much armor you have, that's how much damage you're doing in an AoE, etc. I'm not going to go through every single one.
This is a really good idea. I really like this.
The DPS trials, which is the agility icon, has Storm, which is like 200 attack speed for everybody, Blood, 50% lifesteal for everybody, Poison, you get double damage. But this one,
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say this is the shortest trial.
Yep, it's quite short. You get minus 50% spell damage and minus 50% regen/healing other than lifesteal. So basically incentivizes you to use like your carry, but you don't have to. You can still do well without them, but it just amplifies them. And then spell casting has their own 3 as well, with Ethereal, Arcane, and Ice. And then we added, of course, 4 Joker trials. Just then, as an example, Joker Trial 1, your unit spells are replaced with 4 random abilities from your other hero. So you want to pick your most useless hero, which I think is funny. The second one is all your abilities temporarily are upgraded to Gaben. Trial 3, your units have 10,000 cast range and 10,000 attack range. And 4, you just combine 2 other random trials together. So, like I said, the top bar, you can see when the game starts which ones are going to happen, so you can kind of plan ahead. We've also come out with some new cosmetics. We actually made a very big change because we're trying to make, we've talked about this before, trying to make more money because we're not doing super hot in that department. Other than like, you know, the whole God unlocking experience, we want to make cosmetics kind of stand out. So we've come out with a new bundle that comes with a new boxing themed arena, which you can see here. It's blue with like the red, white, and blue. What are those called? The sides of the arena, the ropes.
Ropes.
I guess it's ropes, but and then you have creeps on the
Isn't
side.
That why you say you're the
on the
saying
ropes?
That you're on the ropes is from boxing, right?
Yeah, I bet there's a specific name for it too. But anyway,
Okay.
There's creeps on the side that actually cheer you on, which you can see in this GIF here. And we also added a new click effect, which is a boxing glove, and you're punching the ground. And it makes a very satisfying noise. And this is where the big change happened that we thought it would be cool. So your click effects can now be seen by everybody in the game. So if you go to somebody's board and you click the shit out of the board, they will see you doing that. They won't hear the effect, but they'll see it.
So everybody can just click on the same board and there's like 8 mice
So
there.
when you're doing the Pantheon round in the middle, you're going to, you know, everybody can click and see that shit. So we hope that this will be a cosmetic that people will like. We also added a spawn effect. So we added a default, very basic, like blinking spawn effect when all the heroes spawn for each battle. And then this one, it's called Darkness, is the one that you can get in the store. It's like a little... How would you describe this, Cinder? Because I really have trouble. It's like almost like a Night Stalker effect, I feel like. Like a bluish, hazy, purple.
Black, blue, like kind of fog beam.
Yeah.
That spawns that teleports your hero into battle, basically.
Yep. So those are the big cosmetics that we added. We also added 9 abilities. I'm not going to go through every single part of the abilities, but Frost arrows, they have built-in hypothermia. So this is, you know, something for your carry that, you know, gives you a little bit of damage, but is more so for anti-healing, which I think is going to be important.
You used to have frost arrows, right? And then you took it out?
Yes.
And then you brought it back. Yeah, okay.
Guardian Angel is now in the game. The Gaben is a % chance when getting attacked to cast a Hammer of Purity on the attacker. This has obviously been put in mostly for the anti-physical meta, or the physical meta in general. Living Armor, probably the most boring spell that Jenkins really fought to put in the game. I wanted to talk about that one. Very boring, but it's good. Overgrowth, we needed like a BKB piercing kind of AoE ult, so Overgrowth was great. And the Gaben will cast 10 radial Nature's Grasps. Looks hilarious.
Do they stack in damage?
I don't know, but it looks cool. I can tell you that much.
That's the most important part.
Pierce the Veil. So we wanted to put a Muerta ability in the game, and we chose the ult. And we had to actually nerf the damage because it was really good. The Gaben gives you Gunslinger, so technically 2 of her abilities are in the game now. Yep. This one's very strong. Primal Roar, we had to up the damage because it was a little bit lackluster, but again, we wanted another counter to like Rolling Thunder for BKB piercing.
Didn't you also have this spell in the game at one point?
This one
No? This is the first time? Okay.
Yeah. The Gaben, the secondary targets that usually are pushed away, they also will get stunned. So could be a whiff, or it could like win you the round. My personal favorite ability that we added is Rebound. So this will prioritize going off your frontliner, and the super will provide both you and the frontliner, or whoever you bounce off of, spell immunity for a couple seconds. And the Rebound will prioritize backline as well. And then the Gaben, when you land, you dispose, level 4 dispose in an AoE around you. It's really cool. I like this ability a lot. And then Shadow Wave was added, which gives bad juju for the Gaben, so a little minus armor / like low cooldown heal. And Spirit Siphon, really strong, as you would imagine. Gives percentage-based damage at the super, and the Shard for the Gaben. And then, obviously, the one thing I didn't mention is most of the items that were part of skills have now been replaced. So I'm not going to even show the change log. There's a shit ton of spells that were changed as a result of that. So that's going to be a huge...
So you've like separated them so that the items are now the ones you get from the Pantheon, and then the spells just have another effect. Yeah, okay.
There's still a couple items here and there that we're fine with keeping in that respect, but for the most part, we got rid of most of them. And then we also redesigned the god pick screen, so you can actually type a god like in Dota, where you filter them out.
Nice.
And we added a bonus rewards incentive thing where I'm not sure you can see in the screenshot, but some of the god avatars have like a little icon next to them, and if you pick that god, which it prioritizes gods that you don't pick very often, you get bonuses. So, for example, you could get 50% more gold for playing that god, 50% XP extra for playing that god, or 50% more MMR for playing the god.
And then I'm assuming the MMR is both plus and minus.
Correct. It's a risk.
So it's literally a 1.5 gold down.
That's right.
Right. I like this. This is something... this whole bonus rewards thing, this is the kind of thing that I think Dota needs more of, by the way.
You think so, huh?
Yeah.
I think that would ruin... I mean, technically that's in the game from the Battle Pass, right? Because you have those cavern crawls or whatever.
All right, so just to clarify, it's not the specific things you guys have. I don't think if you pick Dazzle this game, you should get 50% more gold, okay? Don't worry. No, we're not going there. But, so right now, the way Dota works, there's no incentive to play daily unless you have Dota Plus, right? With Dota Plus, you get shards for first daily win or whatever, and you have your guild quests. But I definitely think Valve could improve in Dota, give you more reasons to play, and give you more reasons to be less toxic. So, I think Dota's structure in terms of like rewards is very stick-based and not that carrot, to be honest. Because like, what if you started getting rewards in the game in some sort of implementation? I don't know exactly which one it should be, but what if you got rewards for getting reported less?
Yeah, or that 10,000 number. What's that called again?
Behavior score?
Yeah. Like there's no benefit to doing that really, right? Other than not being in low priority.
Not in particular, at least. I mean, maybe there is more incentive or more value to it than I think. I know for a fact that when your behavior score drops low, your queue times get longer because there's less people in the pool for you to match with, which is obviously great. But that's just pure stick, right? It's like you are a bad actor, therefore you get worse games and more queue time. But what if you're a good actor? What do you get except not punished? You don't like... So to give you an example, in other games, you would... If you were... I don't think it should be commend-based, because I think people are just going to exploit the fuck out of that, right? Like, then you're just going to spam commends on your friends all the time and try to, farm rewards or whatever. But what if there was rewards for getting reported less, or rewards for... It could be tied to behavior score in some capacity, or to... not getting voice muted, for being a good actor in voice chat, because clearly, they're voice muting people that are bad actors in communication. So you could, again, there could be that kind of rewards for just being a good actor, and then there could be daily rewards for playing, which, most games have some sort of implementation of that because they recognize that getting people to play every day is really good for the game because it makes a bigger player pool. It makes people more invested in the game, which in turn probably makes them spend more money on it, right? I feel like Dota doesn't do that nearly as much as it could. It's only really Dota Plus, and that's already a paid feature. So that's already for the people that are invested in the game, right? You're not bringing in the people that aren't.
Games in beta, bro. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, this just reminded me of that. When I saw this, I was like, yeah, you guys are giving people a reason to play. You're giving people a reason to try something else and to branch out and experience more of the game. Yes, it's great. I think this kind of thing is really good.
This one has game implications, kind of. It's a small incentive, but if you random a god now, you get a free reroll for the shop in the game.
Oh.
So, little incentive to try new things, basically.
Yep.
And then the final thing, Cinderin, I emailed Gabe Newell, and I'm like, hey, I'd really like it if you could, or the community would like it, if you could lend your voice to us for a couple voice lines in Ability Arena, because, the lore is based on you. The spells are literally called Gabens, and I explained the whole process to him and what that was like, and this is what he sent.
Welcome to Ability Arena.
I don't know if you could hear that, Cinderin. You can see the all my ASMR here, so apologies. I don't know if you have the stream off of mute, but basically,
I just played it myself.
So Gabe Newell asked for 2 voice lines. The first one is "Welcome to Ability Arena," and the second one is for every Pantheon round, where he says, what is it? Let the Pantheon round begin. And he did like 8 takes of each, and we're using them. So it's a random line that you get at the beginning of the game or during the Pantheon round. And I think that's really fucking cool. So thank you to Gabe Newell. I posted this online, and people are like, "Is this AI generated?" We're living in a time where you can't even trust. Like, first of all, I would never risk posting Gabe Newell's voice like that without his permission. But yeah, that was with his permission. So very happy.
You know what you also should have asked now that you got in touch? You should have asked him to do the sexy Gaben sound in his voice.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh, Gaben.
Yeah, I didn't want to push it too far. So I actually emailed him, and he was trying to set it up with like his assistant. And like I'm just in the email chain. He's like, "Yeah, let's do this. Let's do it today at 7 p.m." 3 days later, which we're getting close to the update, I'm like, do I message him again? Like, it's so awkward because he's doing me a favor, but the update's about to come out. So I bit the bullet and I emailed him saying, if you can't get to it, that's fine. I feel so awkward doing that shit, man. I hate it. Like, I know I come off as like not having any shame, which is true in like for certain things, but for some reason, like getting people to do stuff like that, it's very cringy. Like I cringe myself out asking, but happy that I did it because it turned out well. So, yep, that is the big juicy update for Ability Arena, and hopefully you guys will like it. It's pretty cool, if I do say so myself. Okay, that will do it for this week's episode, Cinder, and thank you for joining us this week.
Will it? Didn't you want to talk about the CS thing?
Oh, we could. I mean, we're at an hour, 12 minutes, so I figured, you want to? Okay, we can do that. One more topic. What? You have a problem?
When you're on Twitter,
yes,
is your home button in the top left the one that's usually a house or a bird?
Doge?
That's also Doge for you?
Yeah, that was a few days ago. Yeah.
How long has it been that? Was that an April Fool's and they just haven't changed it?
I don't know. It's Elon Musk.
It's fucking been Doge for days.
I should just call him He Who Must Not Be Named because I can't bear to say his name again. Is that what you want to talk about, the Doge?
No,
You're
I
really,
just noticed.
Really taken aback by it.
I just clicked Twitter and then it was the Doge loading icon and the Doge home button. I was like, why is this still there? Anyway.
All right. Anyway, so Counter-Strike 2, Cinderin. There's some announcements. So the Paris Major, when is that? Is that soon? Or is that in a couple months? Can you look that up?
I don't know when the next CS Major is.
All right, so there's one more Counter-Strike Go Major. It's going to be in Paris. I can't remember when it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's the last one ever for CSGO. And then they've already somehow announced the first Counter-Strike 2 Major, which is in Copenhagen, Cinderin. March 17th to 31st at the Royal Arena. That's in a year. They're announcing this a year in advance. Can you fucking imagine if that was a thing in Dota? Holy
Different
shit.
Teams.
That's insane. But that's actually quite a long time.
Imagine if they announced TI-12 at TI-11.
So May 8th, apparently, according to our chat, is when the next Paris Major. So that's like 10 months with no Counter-Strike big tournaments.
Drought. I mean, there's going to be other stuff then, surely.
Third-party tournaments, yeah.
Yeah, you would imagine.
Will it be in CS2 or in CSGO? I would imagine CS2, but...
When is it CS2 comes out?
There's no date.
No, but they said some sort of quarter, right? Is it in the summer?
Oh,
I think they said summer, right? So that's anywhere between June and August, probably.
Or in Valve time, that means winter.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, this is obviously amazing.
How far is this from you, out of curiosity? And have you been to this
5 hours
arena?
by train or 40 minutes by flight?
You been to the arena, the Royal Arena?
I don't think so. No, I don't think I've been there.
I would ask you what it's usually used for, but I know you wouldn't have an answer.
I mean, concerts. This is also not the first CS event in Royal Arena, I think. They've been there before, right?
Oh.
I think so. I think there's been Blast in there already, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure that's been there. But anyway, super happy. Obviously, it's not like I'm patriotic or anything, but it's just good for Denmark to get more esport events of this magnitude. And I guess part of me is hoping that the more successful events of this kind we have, the bigger chance that a Dota Major would be there, which would obviously be super cool because as much as I've worked tons of different Dota events, I've never really had my real life friends attend. And it was a big bummer that the Stockholm Major was cancelled or Stockholm TI was moved to Bucharest.
Are you saying I'm not a real life friend, Syndrin? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, pretty much. No, so a lot of my friends from like high school and even further back would have potentially attended the Stockholm TI, right? They were planning and they were getting excited for it, and then it got cancelled and moved to Bucharest with no crowd, and then obviously that fell through. So that was a chance for my friends to participate and see what it's like because they haven't been to any of these big events. And I see Crit responding to the Major tweet as well, saying Dota in Copenhagen, please. Like it would be really cool if we could get a Dota event.
I'd like one in Arizona as well, Syndrin. If you get one in Copenhagen, I get one in Phoenix.
Yeah.
I'll take you to my favorite Thai place and Vietnamese place.
I'm down.
And burger place.
There's probably a little bit of a difference in terms of like player base in those two areas, but
we could go to LA as well. It's not that far.
I say that, but
is that even true?
Like Denmark,
actually,
it's not. Denmark doesn't have a lot of Dota.
What's the population of Copenhagen versus Phoenix? I would actually be interested to know. I don't.
There might be more people playing Dota in Arizona, is what you're claiming.
No. I'm just saying, just general population.
You might be right, though.
I have no idea.
Copenhagen's population 600K.
Okay, definitely. I think we're 3 million. Phoenix population 1.625 million, or half of that, whatever. Close enough.
But yeah. It was more from the perspective of, obviously, like, NA already has had...
Arizona, 7 million.
Yeah. NA has had a decent share of Dota tournaments, right? And obviously, TI has been in NA many times.
Dude, that's it. I'm sorry.
And rumor has it they will have it again this year.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I can't get over the fact that a state... Arizona is 7.2 million population. Mm-hmm. Denmark, 5.8 million. A state has more... That is...
Yeah.
So when we make these jokes that, Americans don't know geography, the country, you guys don't know the states, that's actually valid. Like a state is a fucking country, pretty much.
Yeah.
It's insane. Anyway.
I mean, it makes sense as an American that you would know the states pretty well because of, how influential it is within your like sphere, so to speak. But for Europeans, the US is, first of all, obviously, aside from being far away, most people that go to the US for like tourism reasons is like specific. There's like some states that probably have like, I don't know, a huge percentage of the tourism goes to like 3 states probably, right?
Yeah.
So like a lot of the other states just aren't that well known because Europeans don't interact with them at all. But yeah, I guess it's the same for you. Yeah, Denmark is a pretty small country. There's a lot of good things to be said about that though.
Yeah, I can imagine.
For sure. Yeah.
So yeah, I've been playing.
That's cool.
I've been playing Counter-Strike 2. I think I talked about it last time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've stopped playing because it's Dust 2 only. I'm sick of Dust 2. But certain things of the game do feel really good. Like the hit registry is incredible. It feels better than 128 tick, but the movement feels pretty trash right now. And
do you feel like overall, with the bit that you've played, let's say in its current form, you ported all the maps over. Which game would you play right now? CS2?
Over what?
Like over CSGO?
Yeah.
Okay, so you think CS2 is better already?
Well, that's the thing is, like, normal matchmaking in CSGO is 64 tick.
Mm-hmm.
That's a low bar to set.
But
and most people
the
that
tick
are
rate
like...
is all you care about.
That's the biggest thing, yeah.
Okay.
But competitively, they play ESEA, they play, Face It, whatever. It's 128 tick. So that's... I'm not going to pay for that shit because I don't take it seriously anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
So hit registry feels better than 64 tick. The movement does not. So it's still better overall, but I hope that they are able to fix stuff like that. But
got it.
Should be interesting to see. I think we'll be talking more about Counter-Strike in the future, Cinderin. I'm ready to make it my second game, so to speak. Until
we're going to go into CS:GO. Are we going to go into CS2 casting, Shannon?
No,
do you think we can compete?
You're too far behind, so we'll go Neon Prime instead.
I know some of the things. That's good enough, right?
Yeah, do you know what the guns are called?
Most of them, at least the important ones.
Yeah, that's good. That's all you need
I
to know.
know what the maps are called. I know what some of the callouts are called.
Even I don't know some of the callouts because when I played, we would make our own callout names, and I would make like a little mini map thing, and we put literally every spot that's a corner in a specific, like every map would have one called monkey, and then horse, and then hippo. Those are not.
Of course, it was fucking animal based.
Those are. I mean, that's easy to remember. And one of them, it was hilarious. It was an inferno. We called the area horse, and then literally 2 months went by, and we were in the map like doing smokes, and I start hearing a neighing sound. I'm like, there's literally a horse sound in the horse spot. We didn't even know that, and we called it horse. Just unbelievable. It's just meant to be. And of course, it's not called horse. It's called spindle, which is now called tombstone or some shit because it's not a spindle anymore. Anyway, that brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate it. It was a good convo, Sinner. It's been 2 weeks. It felt like too long,
Yeah, it's been long. And I just came home last night.
Yeah, it must be real jet lagged.
That I woke up for you.
So jet lagged from taking that 3-hour flight. My goodness.
I mean, okay, to be honest though, I was on 3 different schedules while I was there. I did NA, EU, and China. So I went to cast on 3 hours of sleep a couple of times, or panel, because I was moving around my schedule so much.
Why did you agree to that? That's rule number 1. Know your worth, Cinderin.
Rule number 1, just say no and sleep.
Yeah.
That's good.
I mean, that's part of mental health.
Nah, so in all fairness, it's obviously part of it is on the scheduling of swapping regions, but I'm not gonna be like, oh, PGL just overworked me or whatever. The amount of work that I had to do, I think, was very reasonable, and honestly, largely part of the reason I didn't sleep as much as I could was myself.
World of Warcraft?
If I would have planned it better.
World of Warcraft? Just say it.
No, it wasn't any particular thing except my own day rhythm and my own desired state.
I'm sorry to keep this going. World of Warcraft, that reminded me of something. I'll make this very quick. Played Diablo 4.
Oh, you played it?
I played it for 20 minutes and then uninstalled it.
All right.
It was when it was free and Nikki was playing it. I'm like, it's free. Let me just, it's been so many years since I tried a true RPG like this. Let me just try it. Legitimately 20 minutes and I can't stand this game. I'm sorry. Not anything against people that like it. I'm envious of you, if anything. But my God, I can't take it. I don't know what it is. Now, the thing I do like about it is the story stuff. Like when I went to cutscenes and stuff like that, the Blizzard cutscenes are fucking S tier. Nobody does it better.
Yeah,
that's the one thing they're so good at.
And
the general storyline is very interesting. It's very dark, which I like. But just literally everything else about the game I can't stand. I just can't stand playing it. So I'll watch the cutscenes when they come out.
You'll watch Diablo the movie.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay, that'll do it. Oh, right. Go ahead, Cinderin.
No, I was just going to say we were talking a bit about games while I was in Romania, and I think Fogged in particular had been playing some D4 and he liked it. And I think there was a couple of them that said that supposedly this is. So I haven't played it, right? But in structure, it's different than the other Diablos, and that it might become a little bit more MMO-esque with players walking around the same world, and that it could potentially become the new WoW to an extent.
I saw people rating a bit these big world monsters, I think they called them.
Yeah,
that looked like WoW to me.
Yeah, but we'll see. I'm gonna pick it up probably when it comes out. I would imagine. In June.
Now, what's your class in World of Warcraft? Your favorite?
Mage.
Okay, they probably have mages in Diablo, right?
Diablo always has a mage class.
It's like a necrophilia-mancer guy, right? And then
they have a sorceress, surely, right?
Yeah, probably.
It's the most iconic Diablo 2 class was sorceress.
Barbarian is the most iconic.
Diablo 1 had mage. Or wizard, what was he called? Or was he called sorcerer? I think he was actually called sorcerer. And then Diablo 2 had sorceress, and Diablo 3 had wizard, and I'm guessing Diablo 4 has sorceress.
I'm a little surprised you were mad. You look like you'd be a druid player to me. No.
That was actually one of the least interesting classes in Diablo 2.
Diablo Druid.
Anyway.
Druid is Diablo? Talking about World of Warcraft.
Yeah, World of Warcraft also has Druid.
Oh, okay.
But Diablo 2 had a Druid.
All right, yeah, I'm speaking outside my expertise here.
Go
Let's talk
shoot
about
some,
NBA.
Go play
All
some
right.
shooters.
All right, until next time, Suns fan and Sinners signing out. Peace out, everybody.
Bye.
We say things that don't mean
Subscribe.
anything, but thanks for listening.